Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are going to be looking at 5 ways to make your investment promotion agency website sticky. My name is Elisa Sklar. I am the VP of Marketing at GIS Planning. GIS Planning is a service from the Financial Times, and we are part of the FDI Intelligence Group, the FD Specialist Group. Many of you will know our sister products, FDI Intelligence, FDI Markets, FDI Benchmark. And GIS Planning, basically, we have been around for about 25 years, and part of what we do is produce the industry's leading suite of online data tools for site selection, investment promotion. Part of my job is to work individually with all of our clients to help them get maximum value out of their tools, and in doing so, I have over the years amassed a number of best practices related to place marketing in general that are proven ways to drive as many people as possible to your investment promotion agency website, and then ensure that once they get there, they're able to find the information that they're looking for. Whenever it comes to lead generation, particularly in a digital context, we need to kind of reduce our questions to the simple ones to think about really who is it that we're trying to reach? In other words, who are our target personas, our target audiences? How are you getting their attention? So what are the tactics that are most effective? What do you want them to know? This is a strategic question. What information are you sharing? What information are they going to be seeking? Where are you trying to reach them? In a digital context, of course, that means online spaces or places where you are able to drive them back to your website. So that can be social media, it can be email marketing, it can be QR codes, it can be newsletters, printed collateral that has links on it. There are many different ways to do that. And then finally, how can you tell if it's working? So that's the tracking and tweaking part. How do we track that? What do those analytics look like? And how can we use that to fine-tune our strategy overall? Now, as I said before, just a couple words about GIS Planning. As a service from the Financial Times, we are really proud of the suite of online data tools that we've got. You can learn more by visiting us at gisplanning.com. So what does it mean to be sticky? Why is sticky so key for websites? Well, we know, of course, that we are working in a crowded online marketplace where we are competing with a lot of noise for people's attention. Sticky is key for websites for a variety of reasons. First of all, you want to entice web visitors. You want to get them to come over to your website in the first place. You want to make sure that when they get there, you're delivering on content. And you can look at the bounce rates in your Google Analytics. If they're leaving immediately, you will know that from the also time on site. If they spend just 1 or 2 seconds, they're getting there and they're not seeing what they thought they were going to see. Then once they're there, you want to convince them to stay and learn the information that they need in order to understand your value proposition, and finally, of course, to make contact with you. You also, of course, want to encourage them to return. We know that investment promotion is has a long lead time. This is not something, we're not consumer goods here where someone clicks on a pair of shoes and decides immediately to buy them. We want to encourage them to come back to the website to find more information, to continue proving themselves and get the information that they need in order to make the investment decisions. And then ultimately you want to convert those leads into successes. And those successes, of course, would be investments, but I also am thinking even more fundamentally about things like making contact, reaching out by email, filling out a contact us form, picking up the telephone to call you, visiting your booth at a trade show, something like that. So those all give you the opportunity to then take it to the next step, which is so critical. So who needs to know what? And one of the things that has become clear to me over the time that I have been working in this field is that we really need to fine-tune who are the different audiences that you're trying to reach. And that isn't always a conversation that people are clear on. It's very, very critical when we're talking about your website and any digital marketing. So some of the examples of different audiences you might be trying to reach are site selection specialists. Those can be people working in-house in a large company where they're constantly looking for sites and properties. It could be someone who's a site selection specialist. It might be the businesses individually making their location decisions. It could be investors of different kinds. Those could be people who do funding, venture capital. existing businesses that are already in your region who might be looking for data and maybe are thinking about gradually expanding or relocating within your region. Often we don't think about them, but it could be also third parties that typically assist investors as they make site selection decisions. So that can be law firms, accounting firms, brokerages, regional organizations of different kinds also that assist elected officials or people working within government who may be the first point of contact for a potential investor looking at your region, and community stakeholders of different kinds. After all of the people within our communities are ambassadors for our region, and so we want to make sure that they're aware of information of your, certainly first of all, of your organization, but then we want them to make sure that they're interested and aware in the tools or data that you offer on your website, because they can be ambassadors, they can be directing people to it. The next thing we want to think about is mapping their journey through your website. So for each one of the target personas, and I just gave you a number of examples, you want to think about crafting content that will drive them to your website, and then within the website, what is the journey you wish them to take? So there's a variety of questions that we would want to ask. What questions would they have? What kind of information might they be seeking? What keywords will resonate with them? What keywords might they use for their search terms, and will they be scanning your website to see them? What content on your website will encourage them to actually stay or to see more once they're there? So that often includes links within pages to other pages. It often includes things within drop-down menus, headings, footers, images, video, or other kinds of moving content that will encourage them to see more once they actually come. And how can you situate that content to ensure they see it? So sometimes I'll come to a website and I'll see that actually there's fantastic content in there, but the user interface or the navigation is not clear. If it feels like a scavenger hunt, if people have to click multiple times in order to find information that might be useful to them, if it's buried in different ways, if it's at the bottom of a long website page, we know that asking people to scroll down a page, you get drop off in the number of viewers as you force them to keep scrolling down. So fewer people will see anything at the bottom of a long page than at the top of your page, or what we call above the fold. Things that you can do is make sure that you have multiple links across your page. Those links should be both textual and they should be image-based as well. People tend to look for images first. That is what is going to catch their attention. You want to make sure that the text that you use with any link is very clear so that they understand what they will find if they click on that. Buttons or call to action buttons are very, very useful. They jump out, they catch people's attention right away. And I really encourage you to do some kind of blind testing. This is something I often do for our clients, where you come to a website, ask someone to come there and give them 2 or 3 tasks and see if they're able to find the information that you've given them. Watch as they do it and see how they scroll through the page, where their mouse moves. There's programs you can use like Lucky Orange that will help you heat map so you can understand how people navigate your page and whether those things are easy to find. Often we are so familiar with the content on our websites that we don't think about what it's like for a new visitor coming there. Often they will have difficulty finding what you think they need to see. Then, of course, you want to make sure you have content that will encourage them to return. The best kind of content for return visitors is interactive content that is always kept up to date. So in that case, of course, I'm thinking of interactive data tools. Interactive data tools give your website visitors the opportunity to find answers to their specific questions. So that is something that people might bookmark and come back to find additional information. So that in the interactive tools, regularly updated content that also includes things like blogs or white papers, reports, those things are also going to encourage people to return to your website, and that will be helpful. So just to give you an example of targeted journeys, I've picked 4 typical personas for many investment attraction or economic development websites. These are examples of link language that tends to resonate, and you can see the differences for them. So site selection specialists, whether they're working in-house for a company or independently as consultants, they might look for links that indicate robust interactive data tools, searchable property database, information about value proposition, ability to share and import data and properties. Those are both the language, but also the kinds of content that they're going to be looking for on their journeys across your website. Businesses or prospective investors are going to be looking for user-friendly interactive data tools. They're going to want a searchable property database. They'll be interested in case studies and success stories. They're going to want to research industry clusters, and ideally you'll be able to show that, not just describe it, but have visuals. Business mapping that allow them to search, supply chain data, information like that. Existing businesses, you may not think about that if your mandate is not to nurture existing businesses. Nevertheless, very, very important for prospecting and investment attraction, because potential investors are, of course, going to want to have information to understand what companies are already there. So they will be interested, again, in user-friendly interactive data. Similarly, searchable property databases if they're looking at moving or relocating, case studies, industry clusters, mapping competitors and suppliers, workforce data, and other kinds of services. Now, your other community stakeholders will similarly be interested in some of this user-friendly interactive data. They'll be very interested in community data, so demographics, for example, education attainment, other kinds of workforce data. Consumer spending might be something that's interesting to them, other sorts of layers or thematic heat maps that you might be able to show how different variables are, dispersed across your geography. So all of this information kind of helps you understand how these different kinds of targeted personas are going to be looking for different information and how you might then think about what their journey will look like across your website. So now that we've got a sense of the different types of personas, we want to ensure they're able to find it. And I really am a big believer in what I think of as redundancy in terms of link strategy on your website. So what does redundancy mean? It means that you will have many paths that lead back to the same content or to content within, let's say, an interactive data tool is what I'm obviously thinking of because this is what I work with most often, but it is relevant to other kinds of content as well. So wherever they start, and you cannot always assume that visitors to your website will begin on your homepage. Of course, they may have searched something else and land on another page within your site. So the navigation has to be very, very clear. And we want to make sure that there are multiple ways that they're able to find their way back. So those can be links within headers or drop-down menus, for example. They can be links within footers. They can be links on different parts in content blocks on the page. They can be images. It can be part of a slideshow or rotating carousel of images that will have links within them. But the idea being that it should not be a scavenger hunt, that there are many different ways to ensure that any of your target personas will be able to find their way back. If you have never done so, I encourage you to go in and try and Google your organization, your investment promotion association, economic development organization, and see if people are able to find you. This is not an exercise that everybody's doing. We think about SEO, but let's start at the very basics. So what are the keywords on your website? What's in your headers and your footers? What is in your meta description? What backlinks do you have? Have you gone in and edited the Wikipedia entry for your location? And to ensure that there is an investment promotion or economic development section, it can be factual. There is conflict of interest issues with Wikipedia, but if you're just putting something that is not, promotional, that it is simply objective, factual data with links back to a website, ideally if it has data on it, then you are very likely to find success. That was another way to ensure people find their way to you. Do you using video channels? If you are using video or audio, podcasts or YouTube channel, for example, remember that Google cannot index the content of audio or video files. It indexes text. That means that the title and the text description accompanying every one of your podcasts and videos should be very clear with the keywords and also have links within it back to your website. You want to make sure people can find you. That is absolutely critical. Now, you want to make sure that there is regularly updated content, that you're adding index pages. So blog posts are wonderful, but other kinds of reports and white papers will do that as well. Google really wants to see that kind of index text content as well. So here's just an example that I like to show. This is from the Michigan Economic Development Organization, MEDC, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, rather, in the US. And on their website, they have a block called Highlighted Properties. Every one of the links in this block goes back to their interactive data tool with a property database. But they identify 4 kinds of property assets that they know potential investors will be interested in when they're looking at the state. And so what they've done is created a filtered search of properties. When you click on those buttons, it will give you a filtered search of properties that fall within that particular category. So this is a great example of mapping journeys, of funneling prospective investors across the website. So I really find that very useful. Another example here, this is from the Switzerland Business Navigator, where we have information that's being kind of mapped out for them. So if you want to look for life sciences in terms of business clusters, first of all, this is something that is easy to use as keywords if you're identifying in different ways, but this is very specific data that will help drive people into a tool and help them understand information so that they can make informed decisions about what they're looking at. Another great example here, this is from a community in New Mexico. They're using the Compare Communities tab on our Zoom Prospector tool. And what they said is, look, we know that people are always comparing our community to these other 5 locations. So they set up a report within our Compare Communities tab and then just simply grab the hyperlink from the share button over here to build it into their website. It's still editable, it is still searchable, but this means prospective investors at a glance can come in and look at hundreds and hundreds of variables and see how the community of Farmington, in this case, stacks up against the ones they are most likely compared with. So these are the kinds of examples where you use data tools to build content for your website that also helps people find their way through the website. Now, I spoke a little bit before about link language, but I just want to give you another set of examples here based on 3 typical kinds of personas. So the things that might catch their eye, to start thinking about language they might use to research your location and to look for information on there. And that will be different. If a site selector might be looking for properties, but other community stakeholders they might never click on something that says property locator because they might not be interested in a property. They're looking at other kinds of data. So using something like community data mapping tool, location data analysis, will take people within a tool to help them understand that. Businesses might click on something called Business Explorer, business and location analysis, but they might not click on something called Site Selector tool. So it's just a really interesting way to think about how to build that information into your website in ways that will resonate with your different target personas. Now, when it comes to sourcing great content, we want to make sure that the content itself is sticky. So that is information that will be pertinent and resonant for the different target personas that you've identified. So I usually suggest, as you are going through this, to prepare lists of the different content that you think each target audience, each persona will be looking for. Are you linking to relevant content from different pages, not just your homepage across the website? Link to different reports and content within interactive tools, not just to the main page. And then anticipate questions that you think they will have as part of their process and craft content that answers them. So one great example of that would be to do an analysis of industry clusters or target industry sectors within your region. These might be ones that are well established or ones that you are currently strategically trying to build. Build content on that. If you have a data tool, that's one way to do that. Otherwise, you can write that up or contact profiles of different businesses and have pages within your website that will address those kinds of questions. Now, I'm a big fan of leveraging the same content by phrasing links differently to resonate with different personas. So that again, that's part of the redundancy process, but that the same content just phrased differently will be appealing to different kinds of people as they come in there. Now, interactive tools are website gold because they keep people on your website, but they also encourage them to return. There is also inexhaustible content within those data tools because this information is always being refreshed and there are just so many variables. You know that they can return again and again, and ideally they will be able to share content with hyperlinks to bring others back to your website. So those hyperlinks can be built into social posts, into email, into proposal documents, into responses, proposal RFPs and RFIs, things like that. You can also see them being put into presentations as well. So example here from the Sheffield region, you see that if you click on the share button on a particular property, you can grab the link over here, and that is a link that can then be built into a proposal document, an email, or presentation so that people will be able to find it. Another example here from one of our clients in the US, Duke Energy, is just clicking on that share button and then grabbing that link. That link is dynamic. It will always be the most up to date. Now within the property report, or in this case, a community report, there are a variety of different links. Now, what data we offer is very much dependent for any country on what data is available. We will do the research to find the best possible data for any country. Typical things would be census data or labor force data, public, it could possibly be private data. But of course, we are limited by what data is available. This is an example from the US of the different kinds of reports that are available for different kinds of communities and how that might actually be displayed. So all of that is fantastic content that you can build into your website and then link in different ways. Once you've got them on your website, you want to keep them engaged. You want to place adjacent content of interest to whatever they've arrived to see. So once they're there, we want to make sure they can find other pages with similar kinds of resonant content. You want to use, have links to different reports within any interactive GIS data tool. You want to make sure there's images as well as text, ideally video, and CTA buttons, because those things are going to be very helpful ways to get them through there. Now, to continuously promote new content when you're already very busy, because I know that folks who work at IPAs and EDOs wear many hats, you want to be linking to different kinds of reports. So 3D renderings, heat maps, charts, infographics, just different examples here from social posts of how different clients use these tools in order to promote themselves. Here an example from Mercia, who's talking about the use of the GIS data tools, a community here in California that is promoting this, in this case on LinkedIn, to encourage people to get there. And you can see that that link is so critical. You always want to make sure the link is built into there. An example here from Edmonton up in Canada, using the hyperlink here in this case to map out consumer expenditures. It's a good example actually because we've designed the website to be ADA compliant or compliant for people with disabilities. So this is an example of how the heat mapping can be done for people with visual disabilities, so that people with color blindness, for example, are able to view the tools. And that's something increasingly I know countries are interested, locations are interested in promoting. From Glasgow, you can see a link directly to there. This is also used on social media. You've got the hashtag, of course, but this is a way to use data and then drive people back to the website itself. South Yorkshire MCA, another example here where we're looking at drill down into a mapping of businesses. So these are businesses, in this case, we're looking at engineering related businesses. Every one of the dots on the screen is an engineering business. There's map layers over here that can also be activated, and that way we're able to generate very specific nuanced data, which could easily be shared by clicking on the share button and grabbing the hyperlink. So you're really able to engage people in that way. An example here from the state of Maine with our new 3D rendering tool. Anyone can come to a property and draw and then design or customize a tool and then save it. And that can be shared using the share button as well, literally to help prospective investors picture their investments in your community. Let's move to the idea of telling the stories of your location. One of the things that we designed during the pandemic was our cloud-based interactive Zoom Tour product, which allows you to easily, without the help of a graphic designer, build thematic tours that you can share with a link to guide people through anything from, a target industry sector, tourism, value proposition around your location, things having to do with investment attraction. It can be featured properties, it could be a particular development. But we know that continuous creative promotion drives traffic, and we have a variety of different examples here of different communities who are using the data tools to drive people to either their properties or to their websites and to the data within their website so that they can ask and answer information that is important for them. Now, I just did a webinar earlier this week on email newsletters and email marketing. Email newsletters are a fantastic and trusty, proven way to engage people, different kinds of target audiences. You always want to have links back to properties, to data within your website. It's just a really useful way. These people have already selected as being interested in your location because they have opted into your marketing databases. So links back to your website, to interactive data within your website is actually going to be very, very critical. And then finally, these virtual tours, just to give you a few other examples, which is really compelling content that anybody can create. Examples here from South Carolina, where you see a kind of tourism type page. We have film and video attraction. This is from a community in British Columbia and Canada. Examples of a target industry sector tour where we get to see the different anchor companies within a sector, in this case, food processing for a location in Arizona. Sites and buildings tour. So these are featured properties within a region. You can tell the story. There's data, there is film, video, sound, hyperlinks, social media, interactive tours such as Matterport, drone video, Google Maps, Google Street View, all of that can be built into the tool. Now, the last thing I just want to talk about as we prepare to close out our webinar for today is the importance of tracking results and then tweaking as necessary. You always want to know your analytics. Even if you are not on the website management team, you should be familiar with the Google Analytics. You should be asking for acquisition reports so you can see what are the referring sources to your website. You want to look at new versus returning videos. You understand what people are doing. Traffic sources in particular is critical. Next, you want to look at landing pages. What are the pages people typically land on? What are the exit pages that people typically exit? Ideally, that will be a contact us page. You want to look at bounce rates versus exit rates. So Google Analytics is the first and most typical one that you'd want to be looking at. The next thing that we have built into our data tools is economic development or investment promotion data. That will let you take a look at what properties are most frequently viewed in your property database, what reports are most frequently viewed or downloaded, what are the search terms or keywords that people are using when they're on your data tools. Finally, we have something called Lead Gen ID. Lead Gen ID allows people to see what companies are visiting their website. So while Google Analytics will give you quantity, bulk numbers, Lead Gen ID will let you see who specifically has come to your website. Now, again, this doesn't show the individual. So you will know that GIS Planning, for example, has come to your website to visit, but you wouldn't know that it was Elisa at GIS Planning. But that is really critical because if you see a company visiting repeatedly, this uses reverse IP lookup for commercial IP addresses only. You are then able to understand that they are seriously considering your location, and you can proactively reach out to them. You don't know who specifically has been on the website, but you could contact who you think would be the correct person and use a customer service approach. I see someone from GIS Planning has been researching properties or data within our region. I just want to reach out and see if I can be helpful. Are you finding the information that you need? So this brings me to the questions here. I'm just going to take a look and see what questions we might have. Yes, you will be able to access the recording after the session. I have a question about data sources. Where do the data sources come from? So we're in, I think we're in 14 different countries at the moment with our clients. We research the data for any specific country. Again, we will find the best possible data that exists from public sources, private sources, census data if available. so that we can help put that data together, that the best possible data for your location, and the kinds of reports that we can offer, of course, will be relevant to that. If you're interested in taking a look at the different clients that we've got, I will send some examples within the follow-up email that will have the link to the video as well. And you can see some of the kinds of things that our different clients are doing with that. A question about property data. Where does the property data come from? So property data can be added manually. We have set it up so brokers can add, or realtors can add their own property data. Or if there exists an MLS or brokerage feeds or any other kind of listing service, that's something that we can set up to do an automatic data feed for those properties. I do not see any other questions at this time. So I just want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy days. We will make ourselves available to answer any other questions offline. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Be well and have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.